Mhm. Welcome back to another episode of Stacking Dennys and the official start of the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season. I'm Jordan McAbee of RotoBaller, and of course, my co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network. Now that we've gotten there's one. I gotta join you here. There we go. Now remember, the over/under set for this episode, this official season opening episode, I set it at 11.5, and as of now, it's almost split. 54% said over. 45% said under. Nick, before we start, what's your prediction?
I'm predicting under only because I have a spot to do with Jim Sonis of FanDuel tomorrow morning for me. So I can't be too blitzed, after recording this show and have to at least be coherent for that. So I'm going to take the under, but I am going to indulge.
Okay. You should have tweeted that information out because, people are making their bets based on not knowing that information. But
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, now that we've gotten a taste of racing with the Clash a little over a week ago, it's time for the real fun to start. Great American Race, Daytona 500. It's upon us. A few days away. We're recording this on Tuesday. Coming up this week, we have qualifying on Wednesday night, dual races on Thursday night. That's going to fully set this starting lineup. Before we get to Daytona, though, I want to take some time and just plug our content once again here, Nick, because, most people probably didn't, or a lot of people probably didn't know that we did an episode for the Clash. So go ahead, let everybody know where they can find your content, and including a second podcast that you're doing this year.
That's right. So first of all, as always, you can find all of my content at Action Network, actionnetwork.com, the Action Network app. We'll have articles. Obviously, I will have all my picks tracked in the Action app, as you will as well, Jordan. And my content at Fantasy Labs for DFS will be written free articles for Fantasy Labs, and then a paid subscription if you want to access the projections and optimizer over at Fantasy Labs, which, of course, Action Network owns Fantasy Labs. So it's all under the same umbrella there. But that's where you'll be able to find my stuff. And like you said, the new Action Network podcast, so the in-house podcast there at Action Network for motorsports, running hot with myself and our friend Stevie TPFL, Stephen Young of RotoGrinders, which is also under the Better Collective umbrella. So Better Collective owns RotoGrinders and Action Network, and then Action owns Fantasy Labs. So it's like this big umbrella. But because Stevie and I are now both under the same umbrella of the same ownership company, Better Collective, we get to do an in-house podcast. So it's going to be definitely different from Stacking Dennys. So while there will be obviously some overlap, I mean, we're talking betting, right? But you and I definitely, we go on more rants. We talk about a whole bunch of different things in the industry. Stevie and I, our podcast is going to be much more like bet, boom, done, that kind of thing. So I think there's definitely room for both podcasts. And I hope all of you who listen to Stacking Dennys get to listen to Running Hot. And those people who listen to Running Hot, I'm going to try to push them over to Stacking Dennys as well, because I love doing both shows. And I mean, let's be real. This is the first one I got to do, so I love it.
Yeah. So make sure you check out Nick's content, all of his projections, everything, all of his betting content over at Action Network. Like he said, you can also find my bets on the Action app. Go ahead and follow me there. You can find my DraftKings projections as well as my algorithm projected finishing order. I can't talk tonight. You can find that over at RotoBaller. Now through Sunday, use code Jordan when signing up. You're going to get $30 off for the year. You're going to get all of my content for 2023 for $69.99.
Nice.
I'm sorry, that's cheap. That's so cheap. That's so cheap.
It's ridiculously cheap.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I provide very good content.
Jordan, you provide incredibly good content. That's why you and I became such good friends right off the bat as soon as we knew about each other, because you're sharp, you know what you're doing, you provide great content. When I was at RotoViz back, when NASCAR DFS first started, I was actually at RotoViz in 2014 doing NFL stuff, and then 2015 NASCAR DFS started. I grew my viewership, readership of NASCAR DFS, et cetera. And, I think it was very clear. I was one of the leaders in the NASCAR DFS industry. Again, not tooting my own horn. And it was just that we definitely, me, you, Stevie, a few others were kind of the leaders. I ended up getting my subscription prices for the year, I think up to $200 or $300, somewhere in that neighborhood by 2018. So $69.99 is a damn steal. Go sign up for Jordan's package. Use promo code Jordan over there at RotoBaller because it's an absolute damn steal. It's a really nice deal.
Yeah. So yeah, looking forward to getting back on that full-time content train and getting back into my groove here. But continuing on with this podcast, before we go into Daytona, let's go back and talk about the Clash for a little bit. Martin Truex Jr., he went winless in 2022, comes out, gets the win at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Looking back at loop data from that race, Truex had the best green flag speed. He only led 25 laps that race. Ryan Preece led the most laps in that race, 43 laps led, and then Bubba Wallace led 40. I thought Bubba Wallace was going to win. I actually was rooting for Bubba Wallace because I also had a bet on Bubba, but I did have Truex 8-1. Glad to hit that. Glad to get the season started off with a win. But the second half of that Clash ended up being a caution-filled mess. What did you think of that race, though, and can we take away anything moving forward from it?
First of all, I actually thought the Clash was really good for the heats, the last chance qualifier, the first half of the main event, but that second half of the main event was an absolute total shit show. There's no two ways about it. It was a mess, but I enjoyed overall. I actually enjoyed it much more than I thought I would. So I was very, very happy that I enjoyed the whole thing. I did profit as well. I didn't in the Action app because there's certain bets you can't track in the Action app. I had winning car number over 14.5, which, given the fact that the three guys you just mentioned, Preece, Bubba, and Truex, were the three best cars, I feel pretty good that they're all over 14.5, on that bet. So very, very happy about that one. Didn't hit any of my other Clash bet. So I went 1 for 4, but of course all the others were just small little sprinkles on some long odds. So that's totally fine by me. But as far as what have we learned? Well, I think maybe there was some little bit of inkling of hope I'd seen here and there that maybe a Cody Ware or somebody could put it into the main event of the Clash, sneak their way. Nope, they were out to lunch. Those shit boxes are still shit boxes, still out to lunch. So, no, it doesn't look like they've caught up at all. If anything, they've actually fallen behind more. And I think that tends to happen as you make progress in a new car. The bigger teams figure it out sooner. So they actually should be less parity as time goes on. Now, I don't think the Cody Wares in the world will be like totally out to lunch for every race, but certain races, I think so. And Daytona's not going to be one of them, though. I mean, Daytona, they can definitely hang with the draft still. But I think that was the first thing I noticed. Other than that, I don't know about you, Jordan. I didn't really take away a whole lot from it. I think it's pretty notable, that Bubba was right up there up front. And Ryan Preece is going to do Ryan Preece things at these short flats where that's his bread and butter. So probably those are the main things we would take note of, is just the fact that 2311 and Bubba Wallace, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with this year. And, even Ryan Preece at tracks like Martinsville could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was going to be my main thing was, obviously we're not going to say you're trying to predict a season based on a quarter mile exhibition race, but the fact that Toyota was so strong, I think is a very good sign for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2311. And then Ryan Preece, like we talked about last week's episode, 2 weeks ago's episode, I really think Stewart Haas Racing is going to have a good year this year, and that kind of gave me a little bit more confidence in that. Obviously, Ryan Preece is he's a very talented driver on these short tracks, and it was nice to see them, legitimately competing for a win. Like, that wasn't a fluke or anything, I don't think. But no, Bubba Wallace, I really wanted Bubba to win. He had one of the best cars all weekend. I think it was him and Truex all weekend when it came to practice and everything else. So, but yeah,
I had him to win the race, and I had him top Toyota, and feel good about both those bets, even though they lost.
Yeah, he did get dumped by. Was it Austin Dillon that dumped him?
Yeah. I feel good about every bet. Like Alex Bowman was right up there in the top 3 for pretty much the whole race. At worst, like in the top 5. William Byron was hanging out in the top 5 for the whole race up until the very end. So even though I went 1 for 4 on my bets, I feel great about them. I feel very, very pleased with how I, limited my exposure in the Clash because we didn't really know what to expect, but still ended up turning a profit. So that's a great start to the year. I know I only made 0.13 units, but that's still a 6.1% ROI, 6.2% ROI, which You wouldn't sneeze at a 6.2% ROI over a whole season. So I'm not going to sneeze at it over one race. I'm very happy with that. And like you said, you hit that Martin Truex Jr. 8-1. So big props to you there, Jordan.
And you know what was crazy? He was the Jordan jinx. He was my first bet. My algorithm had him second. And I was like, why is he 8-1? You know, everything I saw, there's no reason that he should have been 8-1. So like I said, felt really good to hit that win to start out the year before the official start to the year. But anything else you got from the clash?
No, I mean, I don't want to read too much into it. It's one race and it's a really oddball track, brand new asphalt that they lay down, you know, like it's not comparable to anything. Even Martinsville, you know, quarter or a half mile short flat track, it's got an old surface there and it's got concrete in the corners. So you can't even really compare it to Martinsville. I know stylistically there's some similarities. So there is, you know, not a complete, they're not complete polar opposites or anything, but even then you can't totally use it to prep for Martinsville, other than I do think Ryan Preece is going to be good at Martinsville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, before we dive fully into the Daytona 500, which I know we're both salivating at the mouth to do, we have a new segment, so we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, this new segment is called Wine About It, and it's presented by RotoBaller Winery, which is located in Louisville, Ohio. Now, if you're a frequent listener of this podcast, you may know that Nick and I like to tell things like they are. We don't like to shy away from controversy. Some people even call us complainers at times. So with this new segment, we're going to take some time each episode to find something to whine about while enjoying some delicious wine from RotoBaller. This all came together last minute, so we won't be enjoying that wine today. But we do have some topics to discuss. So, Nick, what's on your mind this week to whine about?
Yeah, so I definitely have something to whine about. And for me, you know, the new season's starting. We should be excited about betting. I mean, I am. I'm excited about betting. But when I look at what's available right now, there's not a lot out there. And specifically the one thing I want to pick on, BetMGM. Their top 10 odds are completely unbettable. Like, actually completely unbettable. The leaders, the guys that are the favorites, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, all three of them are minus 300 for a top 10. Minus 300. That means their implied odds to finish in the top 10 are 75%. You know what? No driver has a long-term average above, like, 30% in terms of like DNF rates. So there's no way anybody's ever gonna, be good enough at super speedways to finish inside the top 10 at a 75% rate, because you're gonna DNF a third of the time at least. So, and then even when you don't DNF, you still have to finish in the top 10 every single time. So these are just completely unbettable odds. And, you know, even looking down the field, they have most of the field listed in minus odds. There's only a handful of drivers, maybe about a third of the field, that's listed in plus odds. And it's a completely unbettable market here from BetMGM. Do not bet top 10s at BetMGM. Just don't do it. Shop around as always, and you can definitely find some top 10 value. There is value out there, but it's not with BetMGM this week.
No, and like with sports betting becoming more openly legal and more states adopting it, you'd think that these books would get a little bit more competitive, but MGM, I feel like, is always lacking, kind of like Caesars is with their outright bets. So right there with you. I honestly, I rarely even open up MGM's app. Like, unless someone tells me, hey, this is great value over here, I'm not even touching it. And I'm kind of going to, piggyback off of you. I'm not a little disappointed. I'm very disappointed at the offerings of not only sports books, but also DFS. I thought the demand last year for NASCAR, on DraftKings and in the sports betting world, I figured would have them paying a little bit more attention, putting a little bit more time into different odds, different offerings, and even the contests on DraftKings. You know what? The Millie Maker, awesome. We have a NASCAR Millie Maker once again. It's the exact same payout structure and size as last year. There is no reason. NASCAR, for the majority of the season last year, always filled DraftKings contest. There's no reason for these contests to be the same. You have to assume, like, if you look at NFL, if NFL fills their contest every single week, do you think that they're going to get this or stay the same or get smaller? Absolutely not. So why can't NASCAR do it? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. And as far as, sportsbooks offerings, it's the week of the Daytona 500. I understand we're coming off the Super Bowl. Sportsbooks just had Caesars or William Hill in Nevada is still down from the amount of volume. I think I saw Ravel tweet that, FanDuel was taking 50,000 bets a minute on Super Bowl Sunday at their peak. I understand it's busy, but DraftKings doesn't even have poll odds up. People are celebrating. I've probably seen like 8 tweets today talking about Caesars and, I can't believe they're offering all this for NASCAR. Yeah, they're offering more than most sports books. They're offering a lot of props. They're offering top 10s, top 5s, everything. It's the exact same stuff they offered last year. They're offering nothing new except they actually added qualifying, which other books offered last year. So I'm disappointed at the start of this year already with, even going back to the Clash, I feel like sportsbooks missed out on a lot. So, yeah. And then speaking of, this is my second part of my wine. Like I came prepared tonight to wine.
I love it.
I am sick of mid-race concerts. The Clash, I don't care what type of music is playing. You can put whatever. That's what most people bitch about with these concerts. It's the fact that the crowds are so dead. I felt so bad for the camera guys trying. I know they're just like trying to find someone with a pulse in that crowd, and they couldn't find them during the Clash. It's just like when what's his name did the in the middle of the crowd concert. I think it was at Texas, the All-Star race a few years ago. Just stop doing it. Stop trying to do this. People go to a racetrack to watch a fucking race. They don't sit there to watch a concert. Just read the room. I get why they do it. They're trying to bring more people into it, and I hope it works for them. But, man, it's such a bad look on TV when you look at these crowds, and it's just like not a funeral home, but a old folks home, retirement home. It's just, yeah. So
I want to jump back onto this, Caesar Sportsbooks offerings and stuff, because you're right. They're basically not offering anything new. One thing I was really hoping for, and I thought would happen, and maybe it got nerfed because of the problems with William Hill, right? Because it's William Hill Caesars. But William Hill, for the brief moment that they were up during the Super Bowl and then they had posted props for the Daytona 500, they had over-under finishing position for a few drivers, and I thought that was going to translate over to Caesars. Not there. I really want over-under finishing position. That is my favorite NASCAR bet as outside of outrights and top manufacturers. And speaking of top manufacturer, DraftKings still doesn't even have top manufacturer up. Right? They have winning manufacturer, but they don't have top manufacturer. And it's incredibly poor offering there as well. It's a complete total disappointment. PointsBet wasn't even up today with NASCAR odds. They had them yesterday and they took them down today and just didn't. They don't have Daytona 500 odds today. What is going on in this world where NASCAR is just on the back burner right now on everybody's minds with the Daytona 500 just 5 days away?
Yeah, it makes no sense. And especially, like I said, after last year and how much demand there was last year and how much growth there was last year in this market, it makes no sense to me. But yeah. So those are our topics that we whined about this week. Let us know your thoughts on this segment. Like I said, next week we should have wine in hand to try. Louisville Winery does have 4 different brands. If you try the Purple Rain, which I highly suggest, it's my absolute favorite. It is the best wine you'll ever have. I say that with confidence. You can find this wine in stores such as Kroger, Meijer, Walmart, several states, including North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. Trust me when you say you will not regret trying this wine. And thanks to them, you get to hear me and Nick complain each and every week. All right. On to the Daytona 500. One of your favorite races, one of everyone's favorite races. It gets our season started. It's a great American race. It's the Super Bowl of NASCAR, even though it's the first race of the season. And the best part about this is, I think, is the randomness. practice doesn't matter this week. Where someone starts doesn't matter this week. It is just an insane race to watch, to try to bet on, to play DFS with. This is one of the biggest sweats in DFS all year. You can go from winning, like you, with 12 laps to go last year, $1 million to winning, I don't want to say nothing, but significantly less.
Negative 33% ROI.
Yeah, or vice versa. Like, the same thing could happen within one lap. All it takes is one lap. Like, these races are crazy. If you've never had a NASCAR sweat on DraftKings, this is the race to do it.
Literally speaking of one lap, the 2016 Daytona 500, I got invited by DraftKings to attend the race because I was such a high volume player in 2015. So they sent me the 2016 race on their dime, hot pass and everything. I was in the pits watching the race with Stephen Young, Stevie TPFL, and the race finishes, and I look down at my DraftKings app, and I'm winning $200,000. I run over to Stevie. I'm like, Stevie, I won the damn thing. And as I'm running over him and showing him, it refreshes because I forget that because I'm there live, I'm like a little bit ahead of the app. And one lap dropped me from first place with another DFS player called Aaron Jones, not the NFL player, but a DFS player, Aaron Jones. And so he and I were tied for first, winning $200,000. All of a sudden dropped to eighth, winning like $20,000-$30,000, something like that.
Oh,
so
man,
one of those things, like you said, one lap, that's all it takes. And you can have these monstrous swings.
Mm-hmm. And, we're going to get pretty deep here into talking about DFS because that is your absolute bread and butter when it comes to DraftKings. Is these type of tracks. You understand the strategy completely. I love picking your brain for it. Before we get there, though, speaking of Stevie TPFL, Stephen Young, he had a good question. I always tweet out if anybody has any questions for us for these episodes. What is the best beer and food combination to watch the Daytona 500?
That is an excellent question. And I always love Tecate, my favorite beer. So I'm going to say if you like a light beer, I'm going to go with Tecate. And I think most people, when you're watching the Daytona 500, you don't want to have like strong beers. You don't want to be chugging Guinnesses or things like that because you're just not going to remember the ends. Now, I've definitely done that before. I remember PJ Walsh, me, we were watching one of the Daytona 500s in Vegas. I know me and him have hung out for races before. We definitely don't want to be chugging Guinnesses for these races. So I'm going to go on the lighter side, and I love a good Mexican beer. So get a Tecate, throw a lime in it, and then as far as the food, I'm not really picky, but I love making burgers, and I make a killer Mexican burger. So what I do, instead of using breadcrumbs for the binding for the meat, right? So you'll get like your beef, and you'll throw maybe some things in with the beef and mix it all up. Well, instead of using breadcrumbs to bind it all together, I'll take tortilla chips and crush them down to like breadcrumb consistency and use it as the binding. And then I'll have like salsa and avocado and make like a Mexican burger. So a Mexican hamburger with a Tecate with lime. I love it. That's so good. And it's probably not on people's radar, so that's why I wanted to throw it out there as a little neat trick. Yeah,
I've recently, after hanging out with you, however many times, I've started drinking Tecate, definitely when I hit the Mexican restaurant in town, and I actually found it. And so like, there's like one place within an hour of me that has Tecate, and it's some just random carry out. So I did go and get some the other week, but if I'm drinking, if I'm sitting there watching the race, I'm drinking Coors Light. That's my go-to right now.
Yeah. You're drinking it right now? I have a Coors Heavy.
Yeah. Food wise though, I'm like you. I'm not super picky. Like you put pizza in front of me, I'm going to eat it. You put wings in front of me, I'm going to eat it.
Exactly.
Like I feel like it's I think this year though, I think I'm going to go with tacos. Like you got me on the Mexican kick now in my head.
Absolutely.
So tacos and beer, man, and just sit there and enjoy this race. And
I will say, after you do win all the money though, cap it off with a nice Luvabella wine, because that's what so when I won the Clash in back-to-back years, after after the things were finalized and I had my 35,000, 40,000, whatever it was from winning the Clash. Because remember, the Clash used to be at Daytona back in the day. I won the 2016 and 2017 Clashes back to back. And 2016, I had the top 3 lineups. 2017, I had top 5 lineups. I chugged a bottle of wine after both of those. So save the Luvabella
awesome.
wine for after your big $1 million payday if you win the Millionaire Maker. Just, sucks to have to pay those taxes.
Yeah. I love that argument from people.
It's so funny.
Yeah, what about those taxes?
What about the taxes? Whatever.
Man.
I'll take the money that even with the taxes.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm more than happy to pay taxes every year because of my DraftKings.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine. But no, I don't know if I could chug wine after a day like that, but what I could do is Stone Cold Steve Austin some beers to my face.
There you go. Absolutely. I think the Luvabella wine chug is maybe more. Well, first of all, you should enjoy it slower. But second of all, if you are going to chug it, it's probably better for it to be on a short race like the Clash, where you haven't built up a bunch of already drunkenness ahead of time.
Exactly. 3.
Oh, baby.
Here we go.
I'm almost there.
Yeah. Another good question that we had come in, and I know this is a topic that you've hit on before, and you have the data to back this up. That's why I love seeing this question come in. A driver's age where they reach their peak performance seems to be a bigger topic this offseason, obviously because we have guys like Kevin Harvick who's getting older, Truex getting older, Hamlin's getting older. How much stock do you put into that?
I do. I put stock into it because it's a real thing. I mean, we see decline. Kevin Harvick is not the Kevin Harvick he was 2 years ago when he won had 9 wins. We even started to see that decline in his playoff year where he he didn't make the Final Four. So we started to see it. Yeah, he got 2 wins last year, which was awesome for him. Very, very happy that he was able to do it. Yeah. Very happy that he was able to do that. And, because they started out the year kind of still like the previous year where he won nothing and they were just having a rough year. Stewart-Haas Racing kind of fell off. They built it back up. So I definitely think there's stuff there. I mean, we see Martin Truex Jr. didn't win a race last year. He's not exactly on the young side. Kyle Busch, not exactly on the young side of the age curve. Denny Hamlin, even then, last year only won, 2 or 3 races, something like that. So it's getting to the point where these guys who are at their peak aren't winning 8, 6, 7, 5, 9 races. They're winning 0 to 3. And I think it's just part of it could be a product of the car as well, of course, with all the parity that is part of this car. But part of it is absolutely an age curve. I mean, there's trends that show this. The age curve optimal is from about 28 to 36. There's like still a little step down to about 38 where you're still pretty good. And then once you go beyond 38, it tends to decline every year. Now, that's not the same age curve for every driver. Every driver is different. But that's just like the average age curve. Each individual driver is going to fall off at their own point in time. And it's a little bit of survivor bias, because, once a driver falls off, he's just going to retire typically. There's very, very few examples of like drivers that just fall off a cliff and then drive another 15 years. I mean, the ones that do aren't very good anyway, but you're not going to see Jimmy Johnson. All of a sudden he's only winning 1 or 2 races a year. He's not still racing 3 years later after his retirement, right? Like every year. You're not seeing that with other examples of that as well. So a little bit of survivorship bias, but 28 to 36 kind of seems to be the main age curve, and it's a real thing. We get older. I'm not as good as I once was at, doing my speed run on my video games. I can already feel like I'm not as good just even pressing buttons on a controller, So It's just one of those things where we don't get younger, we get older. And there's a point where it's good to get older because you build experience, you sharpen your skills, but then the aging hits and it's different for everyone, but at some point it'll hit everyone.
And I think another thing and why this is such a big topic right now is because of the current state of the young guns in NASCAR. We went through a pretty long period of time where there was maybe 1, maybe 2 over like a 5-year stretch of actually good drivers. Now all of a sudden there is a ton of good, very young drivers.
Yes.
Like I would venture to say that right now is like skill wise is the most leaning toward young, like under 26. than I've ever seen in NASCAR.
Yeah, I think when that crop of like Gordon, Stewart, Johnson all retired, Kenseth, I think when they were coming in and young, that there was maybe that similar feeling. But you're right. I think since then there's been a few here or there, but it's not as much as we're seeing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, and it's like there's a bunch of like really talented guys that you don't even think of when you say young guns, like Chase Briscoe.
Oh yeah,
very talented. I mean, the big name, even Eric Jones. We talked about him a couple weeks ago and how young he actually is. Just there's so much.
2 years younger than Chase Briscoe, and you're right. It's an absolutely incredible group of drivers. I'm trying to look up Ryan Preece. What's his age? Because he's 32, so he's been around a while. But he's right in the middle of his age curve, and I think having already run in Cup before for 3 years. Remember, he's got 3 years of Cup experience with JTG Doherty. Last year, he didn't run full time, but he's back this year. I mean, he could be a surprise at age 32, right in the middle of that peak age curve. So it's just going to be an incredible year. You're right. And it's the old veterans are the ones that are still around are some of the all-time greats. Truex, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin. We have to be real. All of those guys are all-time greats within the top 10% of NASCAR drivers ever. And those are the guys, of the old guys, those are the ones still sticking around along with Eric Almirola. Then you got the young crop and it's like, it's so cool. It's a really good time to be a NASCAR fan.
Yeah. Brad Keselowski too.
Yes. Brad Keselowski. Absolutely can't forget him. That's an oversight on my part, but yeah, you're definitely right. And then we have Joey Logano, like in his prime. Already won 2 championships. Very good argument to be made that he will finish out his career in the top 5 in all-time championship wins.
Which is, it's crazy to think about because you remember all the hype that Joey Logano had when he was in
sliced bread, 18 years old, silver spoon.
And then he came in and he was not good with Gibbs. And everyone's like, this is like completely overrated. And now I feel like because he was so hyped up like that and how he didn't perform, even now with his 2 championships and his constant, like he wins every year. You can count on him for like at least 2 wins every single year. People still don't put him in that top tier category. Which
I agree. And he absolutely is. And I'm not a fan. People know if you've been listening, I'm not a Joey Logano fan. Absolutely a top tier driver. He's not the most elite. He's not the guy that's going to win 10 a year. He's not the guy that's going to knock your socks off. We've seen Hamlin do it. We've seen Harvick do it. We've seen Jeff Gordon do it. We've seen Jimmy Johnson do it, right? Like we see these guys win 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 races a year. That's not Joey Logano, but he's going to win you his 2 to 5, occasionally a little bit more, and just be Mr. Consistency in a way that is just at such an elite level, an underrated elite level. He's like a little bit better version of Mark Martin.
I understand that analogy.
Yeah, I
agree with that. Yeah. And I think the big thing is, and it's a reason I always mention this as well, like, because I typically tend to go heavier on Penske in DFS, and it's won me a lot of money.
Yes.
Because Logano does not dominate, and he goes under-owned because of that. You look at his lap led totals each year. He's cracked 1,000 laps led once, and it was 2015 when he won 6 races.
Yeah, that was his big year.
And you look at, you go back to 2021, Kyle Larson, he won 10 races. He led 2,500 laps. Okay. Joey Logano has not led 2,500 laps in the last 3 years combined. This is how much he does not dominate. But at the same time, he's a 2-time champion. He's finished in the top 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 the last 7 years. I mean, he has to be one of the most underrated. Like he goes from being overrated to now, I think, underrated.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
Multiple time champion. And
a lot of that comes from experience. He's still aggressive. We know that. I mean, we saw it in the Clash. He's still aggressive as hell. But I think he's been a little smarter with his aggression since the Matt Kenseth incident in 2015.
Yeah.
And I think he's been a lot smarter with his aggression, and he's matured. It's shown, and he's become absolutely, again, one of the all-time greats of NASCAR, arguably in the top 10% of all drivers all time. So, yeah, I mean, I know we're kind of going off the age curve here, but the point is he's literally right in the middle of the peak of his age curve at age, 32 or something like that.
That also reminds me, I saw a tweet, I think it was like last week, and it was, I forget who it was from, but it was talking about their favorite NASCAR bet for win totals this year. And it was Logano under 3.5. And I'm sitting there thinking, when I first saw it, I didn't read the whole tweet, and I was like, I could see him getting to 4. I'm not like super confident. But then there's this like stat, and this doesn't like sway me even more to bet it. Like, I understand trends and everything else,
The trends.
but the trend is the last driver to match their win total or beat it was Jimmy Johnson in 2009. Everyone else since then has gone under on their expected win total, which is crazy. But then I pulled the numbers since then. There's only one driver that won a championship with less than 5 wins, and it was Joey Logano in 2018 when he won 3 times, just like last year when he won 3 times.
Crazy. I think he won 4, right? Because the championship was number 4.
I was just about to say I think he won 4,
but even then, it's still under 5, right?
Yeah.
Well, and here's the other thing. So I'm going to throw out a little. I wouldn't say an answer to that question, but as far as favorite win total, I don't know if it's still up, but I gave this out in the Running Hot podcast. Daniel Suarez under half a win plus 130. Sign me up for that all fucking day. You don't think he's great? I don't think he's great. And the only reason he won last year was because it was at a road course. Remember, he dominated Coda, and then he got put back into the field because they stayed out at the end of the first stage, went back in the field, got in a wreck. Dominated Sonoma, but there were several dominators at Sonoma that race. And actually, Elliott and Larson were probably the 2 best, had terrible strategies. And then he still had to compete with Buescher and Harvick and McDowell, who were all very good. But after that, Trackhouse racing, they didn't fall off at road courses, but they weren't dominant like they were in the first 2 road course races of the year. And other teams made gains, especially Reddick, especially Chase Elliott, Larson. I mean, those guys made gains. Even Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell made some gains. So I just don't see Daniel Suarez winning a road course, and he's not very dominant anywhere else. He led some laps at one of the Vegas races, at Michigan, at the 600, but those were all between 30 and 40 laps, which is not like true dominator. So it's not that he can't. I'm just not betting on it to happen. So I'm taking the no side at plus money. I actually am favored to not win a race this year.
At plus 130, I like that. I do. Obviously, super speedways, anything can happen. But do you also see? Okay, you said that Suarez, you like the under on that. Do you think Trackhouse as a whole regresses? Do you think Ross Chastain has less speed this year? Or
no.
Are you just okay?
I mean, and I hate using the Clash as an example, but Chastain made his way up forward there in the Clash a little bit. He became a little bit of a force, not force to be reckoned with, but a little bit of like a, hey, I'm here. And we saw him getting into it with Denny Hamlin again, of all people. That was awesome. That was ridiculous. And the funny thing is, Denny wasn't even mad. He was like, that's just a product of this racing. So kudos to Denny on that. But I don't necessarily think, Chastain's going to fall off in speed. I don't even necessarily think Suarez is going to fall off in speed. I just think Suarez probably hit closer to the peak of his range of outcomes last year with 1 win. I think he was probably, his median win is 0. And so if last year repeats itself exactly in terms of Trackhouse speed, I still think he's favored for 0 wins versus 1 win. So I'll take the plus money on it.
Not to mention, like, as far as falling off speed, I do feel like Trackhouse, and we talked about this in the first episode, I feel like Trackhouse fell off in the playoffs, which
Which is funny considering Ross finished second, in the championship. And
I know that's
really good in the playoffs.
Like, and maybe it was just like my not fully paying attention brain, but I felt like they lack speed. By the way, I'm trying to pull up Caesars right now to get see if that win total's up, and just nothing's loading. Like, my frustration
was they're being affected by the William Hill outage.
Okay, they got it now. Oh shit. Win totals.
Yeah. Let's see. NASCAR race season wins, future bets, which is another thing about Caesars. It's a very clunky menu.
It is very hard to. Ty Gibbs 1.5 is still insane to me.
There's Daniel Suarez is now plus 120. So it was plus 130 last week. It's down to plus 120 now. So I guess people have hit the under half win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not going to go crazy on it, but if I'm going to bet anything, I don't like any win totals really at all.
That was the only one I gave out.
Kevin Harvick over 1.5 plus 120. Kind of catching my eye there. But there's just not.
Got any other questions here?
Let me see. There was one really good one that before I get to this next question, because it talks about specifically building lineups and stuff for DFS. Ryan Stevens with win the race. I know you kind of, you responded to him earlier today. I thought it was interesting because he was, he pulled up the last however many Daytona 500s, where the pole winner finished compared to where the winner started. And what I noticed, like, he was pointing out where the pole sitter finished. And, but this guy puts out a ton of good content as far as Twitter. I don't subscribe to his stuff yet. Like I said, you should always consume everybody's content. I support pretty much everybody out there, but I like his stuff always shows up on my feed, and I usually like favorite or like most of it because it's so good. But the trend of pole sitters over the last few years. But what I noticed in that chart was where the winner started. Looking back at the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the last 10 Daytona 500s, the winner has started 14th or better 8 times, 11th or better 7 times. And I think this is a decent trend to pay attention to because it deals directly with making DFS lineups.
Yes.
And, yes, you always have to go for that place differential. And I'll talk about the optimals from super speedways last year and where people started and everything else. And how even the winners get outscored by people that finished 10th because they started 30th. But I think this makes a lot of sense because when you realize how the Daytona 500 starting lineup is set, it is based off of the results of the qualifying dual races on what will be Thursday night this year.
Yes.
The people that tend to run well might not win that race, but they're going to finish in the top 3, 4, 5 positions, which directly correlates to the winner starting where they have over the last 10 years of the Daytona 500.
Yep.
And, it's that starting range right there, the 5th through 14th, that's the toughest range in DFS when it comes to Daytona because it's not comfortable to pick those guys, especially multiple of them. But,
they are the best cars typically.
They are typically the best cars, and you just have to pick the right one. And it's, we're going to get into DFS lineup construction and everything else. But I thought that was a very, very interesting trend or things that have happened over the last 10 years. But, as you mentioned, the pole sitter, and not doing well, it is such a small sample size that I agree with you. I don't think we can look into that too much. Now, Hendrick has had an absolute chokehold on qualifying at Daytona over the last
100%. Yeah.
What has it been 8 years now? We're going
7
back
to the last 8, I think.
Like, we're going back to the Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon days. Like, they just bring the best qualifying cars. Now, here's the thing, and I got a couple of DMs about this, because Denny Hamlin made the comment about Ford and how he thinks that they have an aerodynamic advantage. I said the same thing last year. I thought Ford was a little bit faster racing. Now, there's, in my opinion, and what I've noticed ever since I've done this, there's a complete difference, especially at Daytona, especially this week. This opening race.
Yep.
There's a complete difference between having speed in qualifying and having speed in the race.
Yes.
Which is for DFS, like for true NASCAR fans and true DFS players, it goes against what you're used to. Because pole sitter typically on a race weekend and everybody started up front, those are going to be the guys to beat. That's not how it is with Daytona.
Right.
You want that car to race well. You don't want it to just throw down a good lap. And these teams are obviously gunning to get the pole to start up front. Hendrick has to, they're just swinging their nuts at this point saying, come out and beat us, because you know what? You get all the press then of starting up front. Now, obviously, I can't remember the last time Hendrick won a Daytona 500, and it could have been like 3 years ago, and I'm just completely brain farting this, but I can't remember when the last time, not only did they not win, but when they were actually competitive.
I guess Dale Jr., right?
Yeah. Which, that's a cheat code in itself.
Yeah, exactly. He's his own cheat code. And I'm just guessing because I actually don't have that up in front of me, but that would be my best guess as far as the last Daytona 500 winner to come from Hendrick. But I definitely remember Dale Jr. winning. I think it was 15 or 16. It was before I moved to Vegas. I was in North Carolina, so I think it was 2015 he might have won, because 16 was Denny Hamlin.
2014.
2014, okay.
And before that, Jimmy Johnson won.
Yeah, okay. So 13 was Jimmy Johnson, 14 was Junior. But then, because I remember 16 was Denny Hamlin, because that was the race I was at where he beat Truex by an inch. And I don't remember who won.
That was 15. Such a good race. Finish. As much as I hated Denny Hamlin at the time, that was such a good finish.
It was a great finish. It was a great race because that was the second year of NASCAR DFS. And Dale Jr. was the not the pole sitter. I think he started third or something like that. And he was 38% owned in the big GPP. So I just was I'm playing 5% Junior. And he crashed early in the race.
So, and that's my favorite part of DraftKings and Daytona, because last year we saw Kyle Larson and I believe Bowman on the front row.
And those two dudes never lead at Daytona.
They combined for over 25% of ownership in the Millionaire Maker.
That's ridiculous.
Kyle Larson on the pole was almost 18%. Absolutely insane.
I was going through the numbers and using the current DraftKings scoring format since they went to a 40-car field in 2016. No starter on the first two rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, as well as I believe it was 6. I don't remember the other number, but 5 definitely was, but it was either 6 or 7. 5 of the top 7 and all the top 4 have not cracked 47 DraftKings points, which is important because every single year, the top 6 have scored at least 47 DraftKings points. And the top 6 is going to be your winning lineup because salaries don't matter for Daytona. Let's be real.
And nobody's going to get the optimal lineup.
Exactly. So salaries don't matter, but you need at least, to feel good, you want to have at least 47 DraftKings points minimum from your drivers. Obviously, there's some years where there's 9 drivers that crack 47 and you need 6 of those 9. Nice. To make the optimal lineup. Well, that's never come from the first 2 rows ever in the 40-car era at Daytona.
Mm-hmm. And that says all you need to know. I threw in, I can't remember how many lineups I threw in last year. I go 0% front row. 0. I don't care. If I get burned because a front row driver goes out there and dominates the race, I'm going to take that risk 110 times out of 100.
I think especially now, especially now what we're seeing with this car.
Man, like I can't like if you're going to learn anything from us when it comes to DFS, do not pick the pole sitter for sure, and do not pick second.
No,
especially if you're only throwing in however many lineups. If you are throwing in 500 lineups, yes, you should probably have maybe like I personally would.
I had 3% total of the front 3 starters in my 500 lineups last year. I had 3%, and it was none on the first row. It was whoever started third, I think it was, and I think I just completely faded fourth. Yeah, I think I completely faded fourth. Busher and so fourth, yeah, so I had 3%, and it was all Kez in third place starter.
Which
he did dominate that race for a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, he was 17, almost 18% owned.
Mm-hmm.
But when we look at so you mentioned that magic number of 47 for DraftKings. So we look at the Super Speedway races last year. The first 3, so Daytona 500, Talladega 1, and Daytona 2, which was a shit show because of the rain. We had 10 drivers in each of those races score at least 47. There might be more in Talladega. I just have the top 10 on me right now.
Right.
But in Talladega 1 and Daytona 2, the top 10 scoring drivers in those races scored at least 50. The top 10 in the Daytona 500 scored 47. Here's the thing. Daytona 500, we had Ryan Blaney and Austin Cindric make the optimal starting 7th and 5th. Talladega, the optimal did not have anybody starting better than 12th, which was Kyle Busch, who finished 3rd. Daytona 2, the shit show, highest starting driver was Austin Dillon starting 21st. He won the race. Mm-hmm. Optimal lineup at the second Talladega race, which I haven't mentioned yet, the only guy starting better than 16th was Ross Chastain, who started 6th and finished 4th.
Yeah.
And like you said, you need to leave salary on the table. I don't know if there's a rule that you follow when it comes to building lineups that you don't go over a certain amount, but optimal for the Daytona 500 last year used 45.9. Optimal for Daytona 2 used 31.2. But here's one for you. Optimal for Talladega 1. Perfect 50,000.
Yeah, that's very, very, very rare.
That is I would venture to guess that we have never seen that before and we'll never see it again.
It definitely was the first time in Super Speedway history. 100%. I'm 100% positive of that because I've kept track of that before. And you asked about, do I set a rule? Yeah, I actually do set a rule. I set a rule to not have it's different. I might change it up. It might be 49,500 or less, or 49,700 or less, or whatever. You know, I don't want to cram in those top couple dollar salaries, 50,000, 49.9, 49.8, et cetera, because especially for the Daytona 500 when you get all the casual players, because they will fill it up. And I don't want duplicates, and the chance of one of those lineups hitting anyway is so low. Like we said, it's one time it's ever happened. I bet that's the first time it's ever happened where somebody's been in the 49,000 range, or at least 49.5. I would bet that's the first time ever. But the whole point is it happens so rarely that when it does, if you're splitting it with 15 other people, it makes it not worth it anyway. I mean, I guess for $1 million, sure. But I'd rather just send my bullets elsewhere and, kind of napalm the field from 49,500 and below. So that's kind of what I try to do when I'm building lineups. And, last year I did 500 lineups. I max entered a 150. I max entered another 150, max entered another 150. And then I had like 50 lineups elsewhere or something like that. I don't remember the exact distributions, but I think I ended up with about 500 lineups. I don't know if my plans do the exact same this year. I actually have given very little thought to DFS as far as like what my plan is, just because I've been so consumed this is my first full-time. I just came off my first full-time year at Action Network. Right. And so I hadn't gone through the full NFL gauntlet this time last year with Action. I was a brand new hire February 1st last year at Action. So I basically only had the Super Bowl as my NFL last year for the company. So I'm coming off a full NFL season gauntlet. And so I just haven't mentally checked into, I'm totally there on betting. But as far as DFS, I haven't mentally checked into what my plan is for DFS Obviously, I'm still way there on the theory and everything. I mean, Daytona's my favorite. I've won the Clash twice, the main event slate for the Clash twice. I nearly won the main event slate for the Daytona 500 itself once, and then I guess last year almost ish. I was right up there. I was literally leading the Millie Maker with 12 laps to go. So this is my bread and butter. This is what I love, and the only reason I play DFS these days is for these super speedways because I live in Nevada. It's not a DFS state. So I have to go out of state to play, and it's not worth my time. It used to be back in 2018. It used to be because that was what I did full time was DFS. I didn't have the betting side of things. And I had an absolute smash year in 2018. Nice, large 6-figure profit that year. But now I've basically just I don't need to go twice a week, drive to California to play DFS, right? Because I have to go once to enter contests and I have to go back and enter lineups or edit lineups because normally they say you can edit lineups if you enter in a non-legal state, and then you can edit them back, enter it in the legal state and you can edit them in a non-legal state, but they changed that even after 2018. So it would require me going probably twice a week. I guess the Daytona 500 would be the lone exception because qualifying is so much ahead. The duels are several days ahead of the race. But other than that, I mean, I'd either have to go early in the week and enter, or if I wanted to just make one trip a week, I'd have to go after practice qualifying on Saturday, but I still have to put out content. It sucks. So it's just not worth it. So I pretty much just go for the super speedway events, and that's it these days. But I'm so ready for betting and for DFS. I'm like, I don't know if I'll do 500 lineups this time or not. But, and that's the other thing. The Millie Maker is a losing proposition. Your long-term EV, even if you're the best NASCAR DFS player in the world, your long-term EV for the Millie Maker is negative. But some of us do it because it's A, fun, B, we probably have a better shot than anybody else to win it, and C, how cool would it be to have $1 million, right? So that's why I did. I had negative 33% ROI last year, but I feel amazing about my process. I feel amazing about everything that I did in last year's Daytona 500 for DFS. Just didn't work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's entering that contest especially. Just assume you're going to lose money. That is the best mindset you can have. And overall, even just overall with this race specifically, just assume you're going to lose all of your bets. What do you get? What do you got?
It's Valentine's Day. I got Smarties. Hey, check this out. So my girlfriend got me Jeff Gordon chocolate for Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's nice.
So shout outs to Kelsey. She's awesome.
But yeah, so a couple things here. If you're betting this week, if you are playing DFS this week, just assume you're going to lose. That's how random this race is. You have to have the mindset of I'm going to lose. So Ohio recently, or this year, start of 2023, is the first time that it's legal in Ohio now. Finally, I don't have to run to Indiana anymore to place my bets, which is probably going to be a bad thing come live betting, because I'm just going to, I'm going to have to stop myself from drinking during the race because things are going to get dumb. Just the Super Bowl. I was telling Nick before we started this, I don't remember the Super Bowl. I watched it, but I didn't watch it. I don't remember the Super Bowl. Apparently, I put $200 on the Chiefs money line, which was a nice little win. But this is what's going to happen with me when I watch NASCAR this year and being able to live bet. I'm going to need to self-limit myself. But a lot of my friends, they want to get into NASCAR. They want to get into NASCAR betting. They see what I've done over the years, and I'm like, of course, I'll help you. I will teach you ways to play DFS. You can have every single bet that I have. But when it comes to NASCAR, man, you have to be comfortable with losing.
Yes. Definitely
more than you do other sports. You look at a very, very, very good sports bettor is hitting 60% of their bets. NASCAR, I would 25%?
I have it up on my action. I think I hit 20% of my NASCAR bets last year, but I made 80 units or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the exact number in front of me. Let me pull it up. I went, besides whatever I had this year, let's just even include this year. So 59 divided by 59 plus 241, right? Because I had 59 wins, 241 losses. It's exactly 300 NASCAR bets I've tracked in the Action app. So I'm 19.7%. 19.7%, but I'm up 70 units in NASCAR. Only winning 19.7% of my bets. And to your point, you better expect to lose. I've made 10 bets for the Daytona 500. So I have a spreadsheet, like I said, where I track all my bets, even the ones that I can't track on the app. So that spreadsheet has it all. I've made 10 bets. Take a guess at what my expected number of raw wins is on that.
On those 10 bets?
On those 10 bets.
A half? 3/4
of a win. Very close. Yeah. I'm expected to win 3/4 of one win. So I'm expected to go 0.75 and 9.25 losses. 0.75 wins, 9.25 losses. That's just because I'm betting a 50-1, 55-1, 6-1. You know, like the one I'm expected to win the most right now, as of this point in time, is my 6.5-1 Ty Dillon top 10, which FanDuel originally had him plus 125. I think they realized they screwed up. They dropped him plus 650 today. I smashed that at plus 650. He's now plus 450. And then Christopher Bell, top Toyota, plus 650 as well at Caesars. So both of those are 13.3% implied win probability. Oh, and I forgot about my Eric Jones top 10 plus 230. So that's 30% implied win probability. But basically, you add up all the implied win probabilities, I'm expected to win 3/4 of a win out of 10 bets. And that would make me a profit if I went over. If I had one win, right, I would turn a profit. Essentially.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I have a love-hate relationship with betting Daytona. I love the odds. I love the long odds. I love taking long shots, but I'm not going to put any significant money up here. And I already, like, if you followed my bets last year, I toned my bets down a lot last year. As far as units bet. And even during the Clash, I think I put like a 1/4 unit on Truex.
Yeah, I did the same thing. My Clash bets were low.
Yeah, because I just don't – I enjoy the rush of having action, but to dole out a ton of money here with this race, I'm just not good. I do feel – I couldn't believe – and I might be the only one that's on this train. I haven't seen anybody else that jumped on this. Austin Dillon was plus 230 as well for a top 10.
Yeah. Yeah, actually I missed the boat on that one because you know what's funny? Eric Jones and Austin Dillon are right next to each other in my model in terms of win probability and in terms of top 10 probability. And actually, so I have Eric Jones slightly higher win probability and Austin Dillon slightly higher top 10 win probability, or not win, but slightly higher top 10 probability because Eric Jones does have more upside, I think, than Austin Dillon. And Austin Dillon's a little more consistent. So it makes sense, but they're right next to each other. So I should have taken Austin Dillon plus 230. If he's still there, I think I'm going to have to hit that.
I think he's like plus 200 now or something like that.
Yeah, he's plus 185. Plus 185 at FanDuel for top 10. So I missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, but that was the first one. I was looking through top 10s and I'm like, wait, Austin Dillon, Daytona was one of his best tracks. There's no reason he should be this far. And I was like, screw it. You know, I'm putting it on it. But you know, like we said many times, this is a very unpredictable race. And when it comes to, you know, my content, I expect to get my Daytona 500 projections and everything up for DFS on Friday afternoon, Friday evening. There's still a practice session on Saturday. And I know I'm going to get some questions about this. I do not care about practice, and nobody should care about practice at Daytona.
Shit about it at all. I've never used practice to handicap Daytona ever, and I've been a very successful Daytona bettor and DFS player.
I don't think people understand like how unimportant. Like I would say for the final practice on Saturday, I would be surprised if over half the field did more than 5 laps. Yeah. Like, and I've seen it. That's been the big stink on Twitter here saying, oh, we don't have a practice session before qualifying. Do you think those teams are going to go out there and do anything? If anything, they're just going to shake the car down and make sure it's good, which I understand. I understand that point of it. To make sure that there's nothing crazy going on. But at the same time, like, I never understood that. Like, everyone's like, bring back the old speed weeks. You remember the old speed weeks when we had 7 practice sessions? It was a fucking joke. It was stupid.
There was no point in that. Yeah.
All it does is potentially sway people to believe that, you know, some people are faster, like makes confirmation bias for certain situations.
Which actually helps us.
Exactly. So that was, you know, another thing I wanted to bring up when we're talking about not using the full salary. Obviously, the better super speedway drivers, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, they're priced high in DraftKings. All 3 of them are 10,000 or above. And you know what? If one of them starts 20th or worse, or multiple of them, they're going to rightly get high ownership. Mm-hmm. You know, you look last year at the Daytona 500, Denny Hamlin started 30th. He had 53% ownership. That's higher than it should be. And I think this is what people need to realize. Like, this comes into game theory about DraftKings specifically. There's no reason why Denny Hamlin starting 30th should have 53% ownership while someone like, I don't know, David Reagan,
Todd Gilliland.
Do you remember us last year always talking? So Todd Gilliland started 1 position higher. I completely overlooked it. I don't have my glasses on. All right. Todd Gilliland started 29th in last year's Daytona 500. He was 8% owned. Oh my God.
I had like 30 something percent. I remember.
Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure I was above 50. Like, I was so all in on Gilliland last year, and he looked great all race until he got wrecked. But those are the type of situations, like, this is, so we've talked about this before, and I know people that, if you listen to last year's Daytona 500 this podcast for last year's Daytona 500, I can guarantee you're going to hear a lot of the same stuff that we're about to talk about. But this is all about the predictability of other players, and you have to harness and leverage that predictability, because there is no reason why some of these guys should be so underowned. A lot of the time it comes from underowned. You know, I understand to a point Denny Hamlin over 50% owned when he's starting 30th. He's the best super speedway racer in the field. I get it. We're talking about place differential, but you can go to like 38%, 40%, and you're still going to have leverage on the field as long as you also take those other lower owned guys that start just as far back. Like, that's, and the way DraftKings does the salaries and the way that not only casual players, but even like well-respected NASCAR players, DFS wise, they are going to try to fill that cap, because a lot of them, like, they just don't, I don't want to say they don't get it, but they don't really get it. You know, they don't fully get it.
It's a little uncomfortable. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's really uncomfortable.
I've totally detached from the comfort of salary in DFS, even on like normal races. I just don't. I've stopped giving a shit about salary. Literally, just stopped giving a shit about it. I just want to put together the best lineups I can put together. I'm not sitting here being like, well, you know, this is only 47,800 with this guy, but we could use this guy to make it 49,500. Yeah, the other guy's supposed to be better, but I don't care if it's 47,700 at Las Vegas. It might happen to be that, you know, the leader wrecks and all of a sudden Chris Buescher at 7,200 is a better play than Denny Hamlin at 10-2.
Yeah. And we've talked about that. That's where I'm not quite as comfortable as you are doing that. So we've definitely talked about, you know, lineups in non-super speedway races last year, especially. And you'll be like, I think this lineup's pretty good. And I'll be like, man, I just don't feel, it doesn't feel right. And I can't quite get to that point. Now, super speedways, yes, I'm there. I am all about, I am there, but it is a completely different mindset. And, you know, going back to another thing you mentioned, you mentioned you had, you know, 500 lineups for DFS last year's Daytona. And obviously you're going to, you're going to get those people that say, oh, you can't win unless you put in all these lineups, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, first off, assholes, I just want to remind everybody that I took down the second dual race last year with one single bullet. One single bullet, I took it down.
The other thing is I've funded people who took me up on their offer to enter, the Minimax, and they didn't make money. If it's that easy, why aren't you making money doing it?
Exactly. There we go. I gotta run to the fridge here in a little bit.
I was going to say, you got to catch up here.
Yeah. But so that segues into another good question we had. So Matt H, he says, first time entering a large 3-entry GPP. He usually does single entry and 20 max. Is there an optimal exposure distribution to target 2 or 4 drivers at 66% and 10 or more about at 33%? Obviously, it's going to depend on your risk tolerance and everything. But general rule of thumb, when you're playing Daytona and you're only putting in 20 lineups, let's say 15 lineups, is it just all about how aggressive you want to be, or is there a better strategy that people can take here?
Let's be real. You only have 3 lineups out of several million combinations. So you're just hoping. You're just hoping to get lucky. So in that case, if you're just hoping to get lucky, just play your favorite lineups. I don't care if they're overly chalky. I guess I do care a little bit. I would try to make them not chalky. That's actually probably the one thing I would take away is not making your lineups too chalky. But it's okay to have some chalk, right? I don't care if Denny Hamlin is starting dead last in the field and you want to play Denny Hamlin in one of those lineups or 2 of those lineups. I don't care. The whole idea is to make smart lineups because you only have 3 bullets out of several million combinations. Mm-hmm. So just make 3 smart lineups. I can't say you got to play this guy 33% if he's going to be 60% owned and you can't play this. I don't know. I haven't done the math on that. I don't give a shit. And don't get me wrong. I love Matty H. Matt, the Paul Menard pick of the week won Matt $40,000 or whatever it was. He is the guy where Paul Menard pick of the week started from.
Really? I didn't know that.
RotoViz subscribers fucking crushed it that week. And again, it was a Daytona race. It was in the middle of summer. I actually was in Montreal. And the race was going on. I was trying to watch, track it on my phone in Montreal, update DraftKings. $40,000 he won because he played Martin Truex Jr. and faded Martin Truex Jr. and played Paul Menard, who started like 1 or 2 spots further forward, which apparently in 2017 or whatever it was not common knowledge to do. But like now players are getting sharper. They're doing that. But still, like that's still a thing where just make smart decisions. If you think these, and especially for the Daytona 500, because we had the duels. And guess what happens in the duels? Drivers crash. And then what happens when drivers crash? They start in the back. And so you usually have good drivers starting in the back. Guess what you do? You just go underweight in the good drivers and you go overweight on the bad drivers. I shouldn't say bad drivers. Like Todd Gilliland's a good driver. But you know what I mean? Like the bad cars. The guys that don't get as much recognition. Just pivot. You have 3 lineups. I don't give a shit what you do. Just make 3 smart lineups. You could use Denny Hamlin all 3 of them if he starts dead last, as long as you're making good pivots elsewhere. So doesn't matter to me what you do in a 3 max. Just make good lineups. Don't stack 1st through 5th, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I stick to high dollar for the most part. So I generally play those type of contests. But when it comes to Daytona and Talladega, I turn into like I've only entered the big GPPs, fully max entered those I think twice ever. Like it's just not I get too aggressive for those. I get too aggressive. A lot of my DFS play is I'm super aggressive and I either have a shit week or I have a great week. There's no in between. Yeah. And that's my risk tolerance. That's how I operate. That's just me. But yeah, if you're only entering a few entries, I don't know. If I'm doing it, I'm looking for those pivots, and I'm kind of staying away from the chalk as much as it sucks to do. Like,
I actually don't care. Like I said, I don't care if you take the chalk. You just have to find other pivots. You absolutely have to find pivots. You can't
definitely
throw
find pivots.
chalky lineups.
You can't go full chalk.
No, you absolutely cannot. And if you're even going to go somewhat chalk, like I said, if Denny Hamlin's dead last starting position, he's going to be 55% owned. Even if you want to have Denny Hamlin in all 3 of your lineups, all other 5 drivers in your lineups, you got to have at least 3 that are very different. So that's what I have to say about that.
And the crazy thing is, we talk about chalk lineups, and this is why you have to pay attention to, guys like Nick and myself that project ownership for these drivers, because you would think that, guys starting dead last in the shit cars are going to get a ton of exposure. They don't. The highest last year, as far as the shitbox cars, was David Reagan, 9.46%, starting 34th. He ended up in the optimal.
Yeah.
Like, as much as we like to say, and I'm not on board with stack the back.
No,
maybe,
no.
And it worked out for Daytona 2. Obviously, there's going to be times when it works out, but I'm not there because of how unlikely
Stack the back
it is.
was a cheat code from 2015 to 2017, 18. It's no longer a cheat code, right? So we're at the point now where the field is optimized. Not optimized, but DFS players have learned they need to play more guys starting in the back. So it's no longer the cheat code it used to be. Even in a week where like crazy forward drivers had good days or whatever, you could still stack the back and crank out a small profit, or at worst a small loss. Those days are no longer there. You can't stack the back necessarily. Now, it's not going to give you a big loss for sure because of the nature of the race. You're not going to have a big loss just playing stack the back, but you need to take some shots going further forward in the field for sure. But smart shots. You can't just take any shots. That's why I like when I said, when we talked about my 500 lineups, my top 4 starting drivers exposure, at 3%, it was just on Brad Keselowski. I wasn't taking a shot on Chris Buescher because he never leads. Wasn't taking a shot on the front row because it's front row. But I did take a shot on Kez because Kez is Kez at super speedways.
That was one of my blunders in last year's Daytona. I wasn't on Kez at all. Which, hey, it happens.
Even then, I was 3% on him compared to 16% or something. So
yeah, 17.65.
Yeah,
but yeah, but going back to, obviously there's going to be people that build by hand, but if you're building with an optimizer, I don't know about you. I know we talked about this last year, and I'm sure we're probably still on the same page. The amount of randomness that I throw into that I allow the optimizer to have
max
is randomize the hell out of it. I don't care. I don't care who's in the lineup. There's going to be different parameters that I like. I want this many people starting outside of this mark. I want correlation to go up with these certain drivers just because, it makes more sense if you have Toyota teammates or something like that, smaller team, correlation a little bit. But don't try not to overthink this. Get your ownerships to where you want them compared to where you're expecting them to be. Try to get, if you think you're going to have an edge with, for example, Todd Gilliland last year, Cole Custer last year was another guy that I was super high on, starting 31st. He did end up at 20%, but even then 20% is still a little too low, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Get to your percentages and just let it rip. There's a base formula that I try to use if I'm building by hand. Like I want like a couple drivers in this range, blah, blah, blah. But yeah,
I don't care if my lineup has 6 drivers starting in the back. I don't care if my lineup has 2 in the back, 2 in the middle, and 2 up front. As long as the proportions of those types of lineups are correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the big thing. Switching gears here a little bit. I know you have a couple Daytona 500 bets already.
Oh yeah.
I know I have a couple. I was very surprised. Bet 365, which I have never even opened before in my life until today. Bowman at 16-1 for the pole, and Byron at 20-1 for the pole. Had to hit those because we talked about it before. Hendrick has been so good at qualifying at Daytona. And when you look at the other apps, so this is another thing you have to do. There are so many sports books out there, and most sports books have Byron as the favorite. I'm pretty sure Caesars and FanDuel both have Byron at 9-1. So when Bet365 has Byron at 20-1, okay, what's going on? I'm going to hit it. But and this is another thing. Like I said, Ohio sports betting just became legal in Ohio this year, and a lot of my friends are trying to get into the sport, and a lot of them, I'm not going to say none of them, but a lot of them don't understand the value in having having an account with all of these sports books. And I cannot overstate how important this is if you want to maximize your profit, because I get it. Most sports, football, baseball, lines are going to be pretty much the same through all these sports books. NASCAR?
Not like that at all.
This is one example. And you go from 9-1 to 20-1. That's over double. So if you're putting $10 on it, you're either going to win 90 or 200. Which would you rather take? And all it takes is having an account. And yes, it's a pain in the ass to create accounts with all these sports books. It's a pain in the ass to download all the apps. But you know what? It's worth it.
Oh, because it's the only thing that it costs you is your time. And I know time is money, but not really. Like, you're not paying money to download the app. You're not paying money to scan your ID or send it to them or whatever you need to do with these various books. You're not paying money to do that. All you're doing is you're doing that so you can make money. So you could argue, of course, time is money. You can make money doing other things, but we're talking about vast differences.
Yes.
Huge differences. And it's like, I'm looking at so there's something called the hold, which if you let's just say for top Chevy, and I'm not talking anything else. I'm just saying, let's say top Chevy. If you just look at one specific book, they may have, and then you convert the odds into implied win probability, they may have 130% chance for a Chevy to finish as top Chevy. So that'd be a 30% hold. Well, there's something called a synthetic hold, which is, instead of just looking at the one book, look at the best odds from every book, and you can get that synthetic hold down to about 18, 17, 11%, depending on the market, where holds are 35, 40%. So you're reducing if you think of a hold like as a rake, if you play a poker game or something like that. But the idea is you're reducing the house edge by shopping across so many different books, and you can reduce it by almost 50%, right? Going from 40 to 20% hold, that's basically a 50% reduction in hold.
And, I think a lot of these books, they look at each other and compare odds. But there's times that some of them are just so far off. And that's why you have to be ready to pounce on these, because we saw it how many times last year. A driver opened up at 25-1 when they should have been. I mean, Kevin Harvick at New Hampshire last year, or what race was it? Him and Logano.
Whatever it was, I forget.
Yeah. So just be prepared because it's going to happen. It might only happen 3 times a year, but it's going to happen. And you're going to need to jump on that and be able to hit that early. Not to mention, you we saw it a lot with top Toyota last year. You remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When I hit Bubba Wallace 100-1 top Toyota at Indy Road Course, I'm pretty sure he was 12-1 at Caesars.
Book. So I was going to say the book that actually has been offering the hundreds accidentally is Caesars, at least for IndyCar. They've been offering some insane longer odds. And then, it just depends each week. And you just have to have all the apps, all the books, you just have to be on all of them, because that's how you become a successful bettor. If you just stick to one book, you're going against 30% hold instead of 15% hold, something like that, which is huge. It's absolutely huge. It makes a massive difference in your long-term ROI.
Yeah. So as we always say, shop around, but don't hesitate. Not to mention, like all these books, like Bet365 gave me $200 in free bets just for depositing and making a bet of like $10. Not to mention like if people use my referral code, they get like $100 in free bets without even depositing. Like they just get $100 free bet. Like one, take advantage of these offers, and two, get the best odds, because I mean, you even look at and actionnetwork.com, you go to actionnetwork.com/NASCAR or even use the app. Mm-hmm. You can see the varying lines of drivers, like they're outright. And I'm just taking Chase Elliott right now, for example, because he's popping up right in front of me. He's 10-1 at Caesars. He's 13-1 at FanDuel. Why would you pass up the opportunity to get him at 13-1? Because you for some reason have an allegiance to Caesars? Like, I get brand loyalty. I used to only stay at MGM properties when I went to Vegas. I used to only fly Southwest. That was when I was dumb. Now I'm a little bit smarter. And
there's still room for brand loyalty, but it has to be worth the value.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And sports books, especially, there is no, unless you are a whale VIP player.
Yeah.
Chances are there is no reason to have brand loyalty, because these motherfuckers will drop you for the smallest shit. I mean, if you paid attention to this podcast last year, you know the shit I went through with DraftKings.
Oh yeah.
They're still kind of on my shit list, but they're not fully in the depths of hell right now.
Right.
But actually, Barstool is taking that position now, by the way, because I went to place a bet on Barstool and they want me to verify my identity. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, they're like, you have to contact support. 3 days later, I still haven't heard a damn thing. Just trying to place a bet.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to do.
Yep.
Just insane. But so getting back to, bets overall, like I said, Bowman, Byron, as far as I'm concerned, I'm even considering taking Larson 9-1 and Chase 10-1 and just going full Hendrick for
spoiler alert. That's what I did. I took at Bet365. I took all of them. I know I could shop around a little better, I think, for Larson and Elliott, but Bowman 16, Byron 20-1 for Pole at Bet365. You got to do it. And I think earlier in the day, as we're recording this now, I don't think you can get Larson and Elliott what they were. I think Larson was 11 at some books or 10. I know PJ Walsh wrote up for Action Network, Larson at 10, but I think that has since passed. But again, this is another thing. Like, so you mentioned Action Network has all like that grid of everything. ActionNetwork.com/NASCAR has that grid of everything, but it doesn't have a grid for pole sitter because books don't very often offer it. So right now, all I see the best is Kyle Larson 9-1, but I'm still going to take that. I'm going to take it for a quarter unit. I'm going to take Chase Elliott for a quarter unit. Going to take Alex Bowman quarter unit. Going to take William Byron quarter unit. Don't care. And I already took Almirola 50-1, so that's what I'm going to do. But like, my angle on Almirola is Denny Hamlin on his podcast said the aerodynamic advantage of the Fords is bigger this year because there has been some body changes. I know I have the hiccups and I have no idea why, but there has been some body changes to these Fords where it seems like they have even more of an aerodynamic advantage, and it's not necessarily going to be in race trim. It may actually be in qualifying trim now. So that's why I threw a quarter unit on Eric Almirola at 50-1 as well.
Yeah, I kind of wish I got in on that. I got Almirola to win the race 40-1, but I'm still on the train of I think Ford. I think they're going to race a lot better. I don't think they're going to have the qualifying speed, but I could be completely wrong.
I just had to burp. The hiccups are gone.
By the way,
it's hard to burp when you're in the middle of a monologue or whatever. So, but I mean, that's going to happen when you're drinking carbonated beverages on a podcast.
Correct. By the way, I just opened FanDuel and they just put some more stuff up, and I have a bet that I think I like in real time here. Any driver to win 2+ stages, and that includes the race win, no, -150.
What? How is that -150? That should be that should be like minus a billion. Oh my God.
Right?
We're betting that right now. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm betting this right now.
Now, this isn't to win both first stages. It's to not win a stage and the race or 2 stages. But still.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Because yes is -110.
Yeah, this should be like -250 minimum, I think. I mean, I'm just spitballing this. I'm just spitballing this. But this is the biggest no ever. I mean, this isn't even close to fair odds. Oh my God. This is incredible.
Yeah,
yeah.
My bet's in, so I got it locked in.
Nice.
Shout out Ohio for allowing me to this might be I think this is the first time ever on this podcast that we're both live betting as we're talking. Like, that's how good. Like, if this bet is still available when this goes live.
All right, I'm in. Man.
Yeah. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, whoa. This has to be a mistake.
Wait, is it to win? Any driver win 2+ stages includes overall race win.
Yeah, so
one
stage one, stage two,
or win race. Yeah, got to take the no on -150. It's not going to be -150 by the time y'all hear this podcast, I'm assuming. But Jordan and I literally live, he hit refresh, he let me know, and we're betting it now. Oh my God. That's crazy. Wow. It's going to be a hell of a sweat.
It is, because
God, it's gonna be the worst sweat.
Yeah, because watch this year's Daytona, be a calm Daytona.
God,
for the first 2 stages, and then someone like Hamlin just goes out and rides around for 2 stages, and But no, you -150, you bet that. And
every day, all day, every day. Yeah, I'm putting a large sum of money on this. I will make this large sum of money public here in my tracking spreadsheet in just a moment. I'm just doing some super fast calculations. I got a unit down, but to win a unit. But I am doing some fast calculations to see how much more I want to put down on this. I'm really quickly looking at last year's Daytona 500. Stage 1 last year, Truex. Stage 2, Truex. That actually helps us because books will think that's like a real thing, right?
Yeah.
And then 2021, Stage 1, Hamlin. Stage 2, Hamlin. McDowell. Oh my God. I love it. The books are so overreacting to this. This makes me so happy. Uh, 2020, Chase Elliott, Hamlin. God, like each of the last 3 years, it's hit.
We're gonna look like idiots.
Yeah, it is what it is.
No, I'm feeling good about it.
I am too.
What happened in 2019? Don't tell me it hit then too.
Oh God. All right, here we go. 2019. Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin.
Okay. What I'm going to look up here Yeah, this is the first time on this podcast that this has happened.
I
awesome.
think this is literally the first time this has ever happened.
Are you looking just at Daytona 500?
What was that?
I said, are you looking just at Daytona 500?
Yeah, Daytona 500, any driver winning 2+ stages. I'm going back through.
Well, like last fall, it was Logano, Kyle Busch, Dillon.
Yeah.
August race last year was Chase, Logano, Blaney. So, yeah, like, it's weird that it's happened so often in recent Daytona 500s, but
I think that's books overreacting.
I 100% agree.
All right, let's go to 2018. Because, I mean, why the hell? May as well look at all the stages here. Kurt, Blaney, Dillon in 2018, like you said. 2017. I mean, this is live podcast reaction. You never get this. Where else are you going to get this? What other podcast are you going to get this? Other than Stacking Dennys. 2017, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Kurt Busch. So, hell no. And that was the start of stages, was 2017. So, 17, 18, 19, no. 2021, 22, yes. So, it seems like an even money proposition, but I actually think I think the yes has been a little lucky.
Agreed.
We could go through a bunch of super speedway races, and I feel like the yes would be lucky, but it's the Daytona 500, man. Everybody's trying to win it. You're not, especially the winner part is like the least correlated part of all of this. Maybe stage 1 and 2, but it's possible. It's just not probable.
Fall race Daytona in 2020, Logano won first 2 stages. So I'm still just kind of going back here.
God damn
it. July race in 2019, Logano, Austin Dillon, Justin Haley.
Justin Haley, Logano, Austin. Yeah, that's easy.
Oh, that was exciting.
That was.
I can't wait to clip that in the.
That's gonna be incredible. Like that's an all-time Stacking Dennys podcast highlight. That's an all-timer right there.
Oh man, I'm gonna bet more.
No is now minus 170.
Is it? It already moved
because guess what? I just blasted it.
That's awesome.
Oh, baby. Minus 185. It is literally moving as we are podcasting. It is moving. I have the screenshot, awesome. In case people don't believe me, I have the screenshot for a very large sum of money on this bet.
Yeah, so the yes is now plus 120 too.
Yeah. Oh, baby. I love it. Jordan, I'm actually sending you this screenshot just so you have it. Don't spoil the amount.
They took it off. They took it off the board.
Oh
my God.
So you have to go into your Twitter DMs. I just sent you the screenshot.
I just saw it. Man.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that we got that excitement out of
this is an all-time. I'm like speechless. This is an all-time Stacking Dennys moment. I think we just ruined that bet for everybody, unfortunately. But yeah, man. It is locked. It is straight up locked.
Yeah. That had to trigger some.
The funny part is it kept moving even when neither you nor I were betting it. So other people saw it too, for sure.
Oh yeah. I think ours got in before it moved, and then all of a sudden they had to get fucking hammered.
But that's what I'm saying. So we got ours in, and then it moved from minus 150 to minus 170. And that was even after you and I bet it. Even after it was still sitting there, minus 150. Then it moved to minus 170 while we weren't betting it. Then it moved to minus 185 while we weren't betting it. And then they just straight up took it off the board. This is
so happy.
I love this. Jordan, dude, well done. Great find. But this is why this is part of betting NASCAR. Like, you're literally listening to two guys that bet NASCAR for a living, betting NASCAR for a living live on air, basically. I mean, you're going to hear it recorded the next day, I guess, but this is what we do. We talk. You got to network with people. You got to talk. Got to be out there. Consume all the content you can. Like you said, Ryan Stevens or Derek Yoder or Greg Mathern or Garage Guys or whoever you want, PJ, Stevie Young, obviously. Consume all the content. Consume it all. Race for the prize. Pierce Dietrich, everybody, Brandon Cruz, everybody, consume all of it. I can name so many NASCAR DFSers. Chris Purnell, I never know how to say his name, but he's the guy that helped the Millionaire Maker winners last year. Millionaire Maker winner. He subscribes to his site. Follow them all. Listen to them all. It's good advice. These people do what they do because they're good at it. And even if we disagree, they're still good at it. They still provide valuable information. So follow them all. You can't go wrong consuming more content. And it gets me excited. Like, this is what I want. Like, FanDuel releases a prop that nobody expected that, right? And we just blast the shit out of it. And then other sharp bettors did too. And the fucking thing is off the board.
Well, it just went back up minus 185, which I put more money on it. I'm fine with minus 185.
I'm literally typing about how I'm like making notes of how this is the greatest Stacking Dennys segment of all time.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to clip this. Like I said, and I know people right now are probably like, "God, guys, get the fuck on with this." But man, this was exciting. That's definitely a Stacking Dennys first.
Oh yeah, this is the first time we've ever just blasted a line on air.
Oh man. We're getting close to that. Speaking of lines, we're getting close to the line of beer set. We're at 10.
Are we? Oh, shit. Yeah, I'm at 5. I forgot.
Over-under was 11 and a half.
Yeah. I've had 1, 2, 3.
The bottles clanking in the background
4,
is my
5.
favorite part of that clip.
Got 5 of them already. So, well, I haven't finished the 5th. I guess is it opened or consumed? I mean, obviously, I'm going to consume it.
By the way, the line's minus 195 now.
195.
I'm watching this in real time.
This is hilarious.
Honestly, like most other books, I feel like have that line at minus 2,000. So this is the discrepancy we're talking about. It's ironic that we just got done talking about the varying lines for, qualifying bets or even outright bets with these books. Exact same thing here. Like, this is just, and I don't know, like, there's not a lot of people like us that sit here and watch this shit like we do. Like, last year, beginning of the year, you and I both were constantly refreshing these sports books. Mm-hmm. Waiting just to post lines and then just trying to, hoping value. Like, obviously, a lot of people aren't going to do that. They're not going to take time out of their day to do that. But hey, if you go to Twitter, you go to Nick and I's profiles, okay? There's a little bell up by our names.
Yeah.
And you get notifications straight to your phone.
Yes.
We tweet stuff out. Like, I know when I find something like that, I tweet it out after I bet it. Like, I'll bet it and then I'll tweet it out. Like, obviously,
obviously we have to take. We're still human. We take care of ourselves first, and then we tweet it. That's just part of being a bettor. If you're a bettor, you're betting to make a living, to make a profit. You bet it, and then you go tell everybody, "Hey, this is what I bet."
Yeah.
Or you panic live on a podcast recording and bet it. I mean, that line is terrible. That line was terrible. It's we're probably going to lose, but I don't care. That line was terrible.
Minus 230.
Minus 230. And we're not even betting anymore. You and I are not betting anymore. This is just minus 250.
Minus 250.
We're not betting this at all. I promise you. We bet at minus 150, and we're just watching the line move now. This is incredible. I wish I should get like a screen recording of this or something. This is so funny. I'm sure people will ask for the screenshot later, and I will produce the screenshot later.
You know what's crazy is if that gets to like minus 500 or something, I wonder if they'll offer you a cash out option.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, like, and just like, you can either sweat it or just take that instant cash.
Yeah, this is so good. They actually took it off the board, repost it, minus 280.
Oh my God.
We're not even betting it. We're not even like, we're just sitting here watching this. I don't even know what's happening.
Man.
People are going to be so mad at us.
I wish this was a live stream. And we were
I know. If this was a live stream, it'd be great, but people are going to be so mad at us because we record this on Tuesday night and then put it out Wednesday during the day. Oh, baby. Just like when you get a Harvick 130 to 1 and people get mad at you for that because you actually got that line. What are you going to do? Now I'm the bad guy for getting Harvick 130 to 1 when he should have been 25 to 1. Somehow it makes me a bad guy. I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
No, I don't get it.
Oh man. All right, let's go to our picks here.
Yes. Good call. That was the total biggest tangent of all time.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was a solid, I don't even know how many minutes that was. But you know what? You can't say that this podcast isn't fun.
Yeah, you can't say it doesn't deliver.
Man. All right. Let's do random fantasy racing, which by the way,
I was saving this. I was saving it for this. Yeah, I hope it doesn't go away.
Yeah, that's going to be disappointing, but
I'm still just broken over this minus 280 now. So yeah, I'm going to do my random fantasy now. And we'll see what I get for Daytona. Here it is. Drum roll. My random fantasy racing pick is I actually don't know who this is. Number 13. Chandler Smith.
Chandler Smith, if he makes it.
I have Chandler as my random fantasy pick. My girlfriend's cat is named Chandler. I just finished watching Friends last night with Chandler as a character for the whole 10 seasons of it. This is meant to be. Chandler's winning the Daytona 500. I have Chandler 200 to 1 from Circa.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Oh my God. If Chandler wins the Daytona 500, this is going to go down in history as the greatest day of my betting life with hitting any driver to win 2+ stages. No.
Oh, man. Chandler Smith. I didn't realize Colleague took over the 13, by the way.
Yeah. I mean,
because that's a Colleague car.
Nobody was 13 last year, but it used to be the Germain Racing number. Remember the Geico?
Yeah.
Like Ty Dillon.
There was no 13 last year?
No, it was Allmendinger was 16, or the 16 car was split by 3 drivers, and then 31 is Justin Haley. 13 was in Xfinity.
Ty Dillon was with Petty last year.
Yeah, he was 42 with Petty.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let me click yours so you can get your
oh yeah,
influencer here thing. Let's see what my random fantasy driver is. Oh God.
Oh no.
I got the 78 of BJ McLeod.
Have BJ McLeod.
Man.
Oh God.
Okay, so we're not starting the season off super hot here, but there's a chance. BJ McLeod finished top 10 last Daytona. Chandler Smith, you never know what's going to happen there with the Colleague car. But yeah, that's kind of disappointing not being able to get. By the way, I'm going to get confused with the two Smiths in the field now. Zane Smith's in the 36.
So actually, I want to bring up a really good point. This is actually a very, very important point. A very good point. Make sure you look up your sportsbook's house rules, because Chandler Smith and Zane Smith are not locked into the field. But if you have a sportsbook that says must start the race for action or must complete the formation lap, because they're generalizing motorsports like F1 formation lap, must complete the formation lap for action versus all bets are action or must qualify, attempts to qualify for action. Those are very different. That all of a sudden changes your win probability calculations for top Ford or top Toyota or win the race or anything. So I bet with circa Chandler Smith 201 because he must start the race for action. So there's no risk. If he doesn't qualify, I get my bet back. Whereas I was looking at Chandler Smith. I think it was Bet365. I'm not putting this on Bet365 or anything, but I think it's must start for action or all bets are action. There was one book out there that was like all bets are action, and so I hesitated to bet on Zane Smith top Ford, even though I like his price at 40-1 or 35-1. I'm not betting it because it's a must start for action. So you got to look up your book's house rules. That 100% just goes for anything. Got to look up your book's house rules. And that's why I'm comfortable betting the Chandler Smiths of the world, but not yet comfortable betting the Zane Smiths of the world at books where it's must, or where all bets have action or must attempt to qualify for action, because we know he's going to attempt to qualify. I want to know he's locked into the field before I bet him.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing we didn't really touch on here is there's going to be two cars that don't qualify for this race, and there's like Travis Pastrana is running a 2311 car. Anything can happen with these dual races when it comes to the guys that are going to get left out. Let me make sure I'm talking correctly here. That's how it works, right? Nobody's going to get knocked out from qualifying.
Right. Nobody gets knocked out from qualifying.
It's still the dual races. Okay.
You can lock in a driver from qualifying, but you can't knock him out.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. So how many get locked in?
I think it's two based off. I think the two fastest are automatically locked in on speed. It might be one, but I think it's two because of one of each duel. But even then, if they were dead last in their duel, they still get in. Whereas if they race their way in, even in the duel, if both of them did, then it would be the next two based off speed. So like there's a element of like speed versus duel stuff, but which I like because we want our fastest cars to get in. But then it's also cool if you can race your way in through the draft in a drafting race. So I actually really like this format. I like the way it's done. You're locking a couple of them in on speed and the other four got a race.
So I'm gonna kind of segue here before we get to our race win picks, because I'm looking at the entry list. I'm looking at the cars. There's a lot of good cars and drivers in here, and I can guarantee that one of the big name are not going to make it. I mean, the shit boxes in this race would be Connor Daly in the money team car. Mm-hmm. Cody Ware in the Rick Ware car, BJ McLeod.
Yeah, and BJ McLeod's locked in.
Oh, shit. You're right. So the guys that are not locked in, Jimmy Johnson, 84 for Legacy Motor Club. Mm-hmm. Travis Pastrana in the 2311 car, number 67.
Yep.
Austin Hill in the 62 for Beard Motorsports, which that car is always, like, all they do. The only reason that Beard Motorsports has a shop is to run these super speedway races, and they always have.
And they're getting RCR support now with Austin Hill.
Yes, Connor Daly in the money team car is not locked in. Zane Smith, Front Row Motorsports. We know they have good cars. I mean, Michael McDowell, Todd Gilliland. We saw it last year, and then Chandler Smith with Colleague.
Yeah.
So two of those guys right there, and the obvious picks to not make it. One of them is going to be Connor Daly in that money team car.
I don't think there's a second obvious pick.
There's not. There's no way.
Yeah. And even then, Connor Daly could race his way in. Like,
Exactly. Like one mistake, one wreck, and some of these other guys can get knocked out. But you know what this is going to do for DFS, for DraftKings?
Mm-hmm.
This is a loaded field. I haven't even taken this into account, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
This is a absolutely loaded field.
Riley Herbst is locked in the other wear car, by the way.
Right.
Just
yeah, he's in that 15
boxes. Riley Herbst is driving the 15 that David Reagan piloted to a top 10. Top 10s in both Daytona races last year.
Mm-hmm. They got a pretty good
sponsor. He was in the million. By the way, David Reagan was in the $1 million parlay last year, which, people get mad at us for tooting our own horn about that, but the listener to this podcast credited you and I for the information we provided, but the listener put it all together and won $1 million. So credit to them. That was awesome. But I've seen us get shit for taking credit for it. No, I'm not taking credit for that. I'm just saying they said, thank you, RotoDoc and Jordan, for this. For the advice you gave. They're the ones who put it together. I've never denied that. You've never denied that. But this isn't going to be that race. Oh, by the way, there's no top 10 parlays right now at sportsbooks. But this isn't going to be that race.
Ever open that back up?
No, I think that's dead forever. Congrats on killing that, listener.
Yeah. FanDuel, the dumbest thing. FanDuel does a lot of dumb shit. Like, let's be honest. Like, last year, they combined the two dual races into one DFS contest. Just absolute insanity. But, by the way, cash those over tickets, boys.
We just hit over. Let's go.
But the dumbest thing FanDuel has done was cut off those top 10 parlays for Darlington, which was the week after the Daytona $1 million parlay hit. Because everybody was talking about that. Everybody was going to try to bet guys like Cody Ware and try to do the exact same thing. And the chances of that happening at Darlington were, I don't want to say zero, but as close to zero as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So FanDuel could have absolutely raked every single person that bet a parlay like that. And yeah, I don't think we're ever going to see those again. There's like, I just saw a tweet today that was like, how can I parlay top 5, top 10 finishes? I'm like, you're not going to see it again. If any sportsbook ever offers it again, please DM me immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm going to sit there and like, I'm not going to do it for regular races, but Daytona comes around. Yeah, I'll start making
Riley
bets.
Herbst is in that car, which of course David Reagan was. And David Reagan is the consummate super speedway driver. He's so good. Mm-hmm. But I think Riley Herbst can do things with that car as well. When I'm building DFS lineups, I'm not going 5%. Guys. I'm not going 10% on Riley Herbst. I'm going 15 to 20% minimum on Riley Herbst if he's starting, in the 30s or whatever, which is what I should have done last year on David Reagan. But I was so hesitant on those wear cars that I think I only went about equal. I think I did 10, 11, 12%, something like that. But no, Riley Herbst is a good driver. He's a good driver.
Yeah, and that's another thing, for DFS players this week. The lower or the lesser known guys, the Chandler Smiths, the Riley Herbst, they're going to be their chances. The Zane Smiths, they're probably going to be starting back there in 30 something. And because they're not a household name like Jimmy Johnson or even Austin Hill, I would kind of argue there, maybe not really, but Jimmy Johnson especially is going to get such a higher ownership just based on his name, which is stupid. Stupid.
Especially in the lower dollar contests.
Yes. Like, this is such the week to pivot, especially, opening week. A lot of casual players are going to be playing DraftKings this week. Like, go underweight on every single big name. And if not every single one of them, most of them. You know what I mean? That is my one takeaway for this. Just be different this week. This is the week to do it. And obviously, you and I have been very successful DFS players over the years because of our contrarian brains, but this is 100% the week to do it.
100%. Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, it might not work out. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and guarantee that it works out.
No, of course not.
But
I'm not going to guarantee that the no is going to hit on no driver to win 2+ stages. Like, I'm not going to guarantee that, but it's still a good bet.
Yeah.
If you give me this a gazillion times over, I'm going to take the no at -150 every single time. Because it's, instead of it, -150 is equivalent to 60% no. I think it's probably closer to 65, 70, 75% no. And just because it's happened a few times doesn't mean that's the long-term thing. I think it's just happened to happen, But I don't think it's a long-term thing at all for this to be a reality. So we talked about picks to win. I mean, we just went through BJ McLeod, started on this next tangent.
Yeah. So I think we're both on the same page here. Connor Daly is going to be one of the people that do not make it. Who is your second to not make it? Am I saying that right? Daly?
Yeah. Connor Daly.
Or is it Daly?
Daly. So Derek Daly, famous Formula One driver. Connor Daly is his son. And Connor Daly was leading the Indy 500 a couple years ago, led a lot of laps and had some bad luck. But the Daly family is very well known in open-wheeled circles. Connor Daly, full-time in IndyCar as well, is running the Daytona 500 as well as some other select races for the money team. My other pick, which this kind of sucks. Like, we got Jimmy Johnson, got double Smiths. We've got Austin Hill, and then I'm missing one of Travis Pastrana. I'm going to take Pastrana because I don't even understand this move. Like, it obviously, I mean, I do understand. Obviously, it's money driven. We know it. We know it's money driven. The only reason Pastrana's in this car is because of money. He hasn't raced in a stock cars in NASCAR since 2013, which is in the Xfinity Series, then the Nationwide Series. He's raced trucks a few times since then, but it's like usually one-offs. But he's never raced in Cup ever at the top level. I just don't understand this move. He's a wrecking ball. I don't think he knows what he's. My feeling is he's not going to know what he's doing and not make the race.
I think that's a pretty. Yes, because and here's another reason why. He's in a Toyota, and we have two dual races. Depending on how he could end up with not a single other Toyota.
Exactly.
And these other guys aren't going to help him. So, yeah, I think Pastrana is definitely the safe pick. I'm rooting for Johnson not to make it just for the drama, but I think it's going to be Daly.
I would
Daly
love.
and Pastrana.
I actually am not rooting for that because I like Jimmy Johnson or anything. I think it'd be cool to have. I think it's good for NASCAR to have him in this race.
I understand that.
I think it's better for NASCAR to have Jimmy Johnson in this race than it is to have Travis Pastrana in this race. And I hesitated as I say that because I realize saying that means you can bring in Travis Pastrana's fan base, which is not a NASCAR fan base. And the NASCAR fan base already knows about Jimmy Johnson. So I hesitated as I say that, but I still think overall the larger balance is it's probably better to have Jimmy Johnson in the race.
Actually, I take that statement, but I want it for the drama aspect, but for the DFS aspect of Jimmy Johnson being 60% owned. Like
Pastrana making the race actually be the worst thing for DFS because you don't know how to play him. Like, I don't think he's good, but he's also in a 2311 car.
Yeah.
It's like, so do you go over or under on him? Like, I think people will actually potentially be over on him. I don't know. I actually think Pastrana would be the worst thing for DFS. God, somebody just wreck him on lap 1, please. Please.
Gosh.
I don't want to deal with that.
All right. I'm gonna go Pastrana too. Like we have the same picks here, Pastrana and Daly. Who's your pick to win Daytona 500?
I'm gonna go William Byron.
I don't know if anybody can hear it, but Link is snoring right now, directly next to this microphone. William Byron to win the day. Oh man, that's
You know what's funny? He's the number one Chevy in my model, top Chevy in my model, even ahead of Chase Elliott. Obviously ahead of Larson and Bowman because they suck at super speedways. But he is the top Chevy in my model, barely over Chase Elliott. And my top five, okay, I'll just give it out here. My top five in my model to win based off win probability. Number one is Denny Hamlin. I think nobody can argue with that. Number two is Ryan Blaney. Again, I think nobody can argue with that.
Nope.
Number three is William Byron, which is the interesting one. Number four is Chase Elliott, which is hard to argue. And number five is Joey Logano. So I very much trust my model because I think the top five make a lot of sense. I just think William Byron being in third overall is very interesting. So I'm going to go with him.
Yeah. Especially and that goes to show how finishing position at these races is not a future predictor.
No.
Because you look at the last 5 races from William Byron at Daytona, points paying races. 34th, 38th, 37th, 26th, 1st, and 40th.
Yeah.
He's wrecked out of 4 of the last 6 and finished 26th and 1st in the other 2. So I'm with you there.
He has big upside if he can avoid the problems.
And his odds right now, please don't. Nope, there we go. Byron, you can get him at 19-1.
Mm-hmm.
You like that, or
I do. I
mean, if he's third in your model,
I've been saving this, but I think Byron at 19-1 is right on the cusp of what I would consider value. So I haven't yet bet it. It doesn't mean I'm not going to bet it. It doesn't mean I will bet it. But it's one of those, like, I'm considering this, and I want to wait and just see everything. What is everything, props included, because I want to put together a portfolio, right? I don't want to just necessarily have outrights. And part of a portfolio is your outright portfolio. But if I can find a better angle on Byron, I think I would take that. So I'm more just waiting on him because this is one where I think if I wait, I might be able to find a better angle on him. But even if I wait and don't find a better angle on him, I probably would still take him at like 16-1. So I'm okay with that. It's one of and that's the thing. People will be like, oh, well, you didn't get him at the best odds possible. I'm like, I don't care because I think the best EV was waiting on him to see if something else popped up better, and then it didn't. So it's not always about getting the exact best number. It's about maximizing your expected lifetime value rather than your raw value, because you never know if a guy is gonna if your guy who you really like, who you're showing thin value on, will come up in massive value in a different market. And that's what I kind of did with Ty Dillon. Some 5-1 at top 10. And then all of a sudden, Caesars drops their top manufacturer odds, and he's 66-1. And I bet him at 66-1. I wrote him at 55-1, because he'd already moved after I bet him. I moved to the market. So I actually did get him at 66-1. He's tracked, and in my sheet and everything is 55-1. But that's the whole point. Is like I saw top 10 value on him at 5-1. But I wanted to wait. And then I actually ended up getting him 6.5-1 at top 10 anyway. So it's one of those things where you don't necessarily have to bet people. There's part of being a good bettor is anticipating the market as well.
Mm-hmm. Especially this week. Like, there's certain weeks that you should absolutely jump on value early, but yeah, I don't know. A lot of it, there's a little bit that is a little bit of gut feeling on stuff. And, when it feels right, you do it. But I'm going to go for my winner, Bubba Wallace.
Hell yeah, dude. I love it.
And that sexy ass McDonald's paint scheme.
Yes.
I fucking love that. That car looks so good. behind when he has the DraftKings paint scheme. But I want this season to start out with a bang. And there's nobody can deny right now that Bubba Wallace is near the top when it comes to super speedways. He is amazing at this track type.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason to think that 2311 won't be able to compete in this race. So locking it in, Bubba Wallace. RotoDoc has Byron.
And Bubba.
Man.
And our random fantasy picks are below average.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to have a good year, right? Like, wasn't one of our predictions coming in the year like this is going to be your year, RotoDoc? No.
Uh-huh. Yeah, your first two picks in random fantasy racing is Cody Ware and Chandler Smith. Man. All right. I think that's all I got. This was a solid episode though.
Oh, it was good. I'm absolutely floored by the live betting a prop on air. And somehow we beat the market to it because we bet it at minus 150. And after we bet it at minus 150, and after I double bet it at minus 150, because I wanted to get down and then do some calculations to make sure I knew how much I wanted to get down. After all that, then it moved to minus 170. So there's one movement. It moved to minus 180 or 85. I can't remember. There was another movement. Then it moved to minus, 230? I think.
Yeah.
Then 250.
In between there, they took it off the board.
Yeah, and there was an off the board, and then 280. So it moved 5 times without us even touching it, which I think is great because that means other people saw this and bet it as well. And we got in, if not first, early because I like you said, you refreshed it and saw it and it came up and I was like, oh shit. But first on Stacking Dennys. Maybe we'll have another one this year.
Oh, I hope so.
We're gonna have to figure out a way to do a live show this year, I guess, because of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got to figure out like the schedule for when books come out with their odds.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be the best time. But
Daytona 500 is going to be a special exception, obviously, because it's Daytona 500. But you're right. We need to kind of get on the schedule. And like DraftKings was kind of on their schedule this year, but they didn't do top manufacturer, which made no sense. They didn't do top 10, which made no sense. But the other things they did was right on their normal schedule. So I'm curious how that's going to play out. So we'll just have to monitor. And like I said, timing the market is important. There has been other times I've specifically waited on draft, especially last year. I knew Caesars was hanging the long shots at even longer odds than other books early in the year, not later in the year, but early in the year. So I specifically waited on a couple drivers to get longer odds on them early in the year because I knew Caesars was going to drop them later at longer odds. And I did. I don't think any of them won, but I think the whole point is I got value simply by knowing I could wait. So if you want to be successful in NASCAR betting, you have to consume it all. Consume every content creator you can. Look at books all the time, understand their trends, and that is a portion of the way to getting there.
Mm-hmm. And always remember, this is a very long season.
I was down 10 units in the first 3 or 4 weeks, and I ended up 70 units. So
it never fails. Like I've been doing this fantasy stuff for a long time, and typically this is how my season goes. I start slow. I'm super hot in summer, and then I end slow.
I think that's most of us.
Yeah, and you just have to remember.
Daytona aside for me, I think that's my typical trend.
And that's when it gets scary for me because the last 2 years I've gotten off to super hot starts to start the year. So I'll get super hot. I'm always hot in summer, and then the fall last year was awful for me. But I stepped away. Oh, we're definitely hitting the over there.
I would say over +1.
There we go.
It's Daytona, man. It's the longest show of the year. It's supposed to be the longest show of the year. This is the Daytona 500. We're going to talk everything we could talk, and we accidentally had a 10-minute segue on a bet we saw live.
But yeah, like biggest takeaway, just remember, this is a long season. You go through a hard, rough patch. Just start betting less until you start getting back on your game. Mm-hmm. Like, there are 40 races this year. Like, you're not going to win them all.
No, God. No.
And people that think they can or that they do, or honestly, I don't believe them at all. But
God no. Good. I lose more than I win, and that's not even close.
DFS wise, if I hit 30% winning weeks, I'm having a great year. That's the benchmark. So
absolutely.
Good luck to everybody with their bets this weekend with Daytona. Hopefully we helped you out a little bit. Follow us on Twitter. Like I'm sure there's going to be more shit that pops up as this week goes on.
I'm curious, Jordan. I'm curious if there's any, and I'm surprising you with this live on podcast, if there's any potential to do a live show this weekend.
I'm scheduled to, or I'll do a live show. I was planning on doing a live show Sunday if you want to join me.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
Let's do it.
I think we should.
I'm adding you in there then.
Yeah, there it is.
All right. Boom. Scheduled right here on Stacking Dennys. Me and RotoDoc and I will be doing a live show on Sunday.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking all DFS and all strategy. And hopefully, if one of us doesn't win the Millie, somebody that we helped with will. Because, man, who is it? Sean that won it last year?
Yeah, Sean.
I saw
Taylor.
Trailer.
I apologize. Yeah. Trailer. I always mess that up.
Yeah, I saw his tweet. I think it was earlier this week. It's like, oh, time to defend my crown.
He stole it from me. I'm just kidding. No, I love Sean. He's a really nice guy. He's been following me for a long time, and super sharp DFS player. And I guess he's not super well known in DFS circles because he only has 166 followers on Twitter, but I have known of him for a long time, and he's very sharp. So, congrats! Obviously, well done. I hope the taxes weren't too much of a burden. I guess it's tax season coming up, but dude, go for it. Defend your crown. But I'm coming for you.
It's going to be an exciting weekend, and we will. NASCAR's back, man. I'm so excited.
Yes, let's fucking go.
Yes. This is going to be a good year. So good luck to everybody this week with the Daytona 500. We'll get back and talk to you with Auto Club the week after and recap Daytona. Thank you again to RotoBaller for sponsoring this podcast and our whine about it segment. And
we're totally going to whine all year.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk to you guys next week. See you.